Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. And a happy solstice, especially to the members of our make-believe monastery. I hope you have had some opportunity to do some sun worship today and especially tomorrow morning. At sunrise on the solstice day, on a Sunday this year. So that would be special. Rebecca has, as always, I did put a link to Rebecca's book. She calls it something else. In the previous video, I'll link it again in this one. If you want some guidance through the wheel of the year. Rebecca always has us take pictures of the sunrise on solstice day. And then send it to your friends as proof that you did your part to keep the sun rising. I am happy to hear that my voice and presence are felt as relaxing. That was indeed the intention. I set out to support or calm or relax the nervous system of one particular human being, but afterwards Rebecca wrote to me that apparently there's a sort of pandemic almost going around about disorganized nervous systems or something. So I think it's just that we're overstimulated. And so I do my best to be very understimulating. I think I'm successful. So let's understimulate ourselves by closing our eyes. The beauty of being understimulated is that you're capable of picking up the smallest of details when you focus on only the one, only the breath, only the feel of your fingers against each other, or your thumb against your fingers or finger. Only your heartbeat beating through the tips of your fingers. It becomes suddenly very loud. This otherwise unhearable sensation. Simply by paying attention, shutting out other stimuli and paying attention. I will encourage you to take some time today or whenever to sit with yourself a bit longer and simply pay attention to the strange thing, your heartbeat, that which keeps you alive, which keeps you here, and how you can feel it in your fingers. Is that maybe a way to become your fingers? Definitely a way to become your heartbeat. For now, 5 minutes in, let's listen to Plato. Yes, I said, Critias, but you come to me as though I profess to know about the questions which I ask, and as though I could, if I only would, agree with you. Whereas the fact is that I inquire with you into the truth of that which is advanced from time to time. Just because I do not know, and when I have inquired, I will say whether I agree with you or not. Please then to allow me time to reflect. Reflect, he said. I am reflecting, I replied. And discover that temperance or wisdom, again, this translation go with both temperance and wisdom, and sometimes only wisdom, for the word sophrosune, which is often translated and best understood because it is one of the cardinal, okay, maybe I should come back to this later, the cardinal virtues. But it is also, sophrosune, possible to translate that as prudence, which is wisdom. But again, Thronesis, practical wisdom, is also translated as prudence. Hence, the cardinal wisdoms come into question. I am reflecting, I replied, and discover that temperance or wisdom, if implying a knowledge from the Greek root ginosko, of anything, must be a science from the Greek root episteme, and a science of something, so a branch of knowledge, episteme. Science here, remember the Greeks did not have our understanding of science. It was knowledge, a branch of knowledge. Yes, he said, the science of itself. The other one has oneself, which brings us back to know thyself. But itself, I think, is a better translation. Ioto, tu, is the Greek. Is not medicine, I said, the science of health, the knowledge of health? True. And suppose, I said, that I were asked by you what is the use or effect of medicine, which is the science of health. I should answer that medicine is of very great use in producing health, which, as you will admit, is an excellent effect. Granted. And if you were to ask me what is the result or effect of architecture, which is the science of building, I should say houses, and so of other arts, which all have their different results. Now I want you, Critias, to answer a similar question about temperance or wisdom, which according to you is the science of itself. Wisdom studying wisdom. Admitting this view, I ask you, what good work worthy of the name wise does temperance or wisdom, which is the science of itself, effect? Answer me. That is not the true way of pursuing the inquiry, Socrates, he said. For wisdom, temperance, is not like the other sciences, sophrosune, any more than they are like one another. But you proceed as if they were alike. For tell me, he said, what result is there of computation or geometry in the same sense as a house is the result of building, or a garment of weaving, or any other work of any other art? Can you show me any such result of them? You cannot. That is true, I said, but still each of these sciences has a subject which is different from the science. I can show you that the art of computation has to do with odd and even numbers in their numerical relations to themselves and to each other. Is not that true? Yes, he said. And the odd and even numbers are not the same with the art of computation. They are not. The art of weighing, again, has to do with lighter and heavier. But the art of weighing is one thing, and the heavy and the light another. Do you admit that? Yes. Now I want to know what is that which is not wisdom, and of which wisdom is the science. Here he just goes with wisdom. It's still sophrosune. So the other translation, as it is temperance. You are just falling into the old error, Socrates, he said. You come asking if what wisdom or temperance differs, in what wisdom or temperance differ from the other sciences, and then you try to discover some respect in which they are alike. But they are not, for all the other sciences or branches of knowledge are of something else and not of themselves. Wisdom alone is a science of other sciences and of itself. And of this, as I believe, you are very well aware, and that you are only doing what you denied that you were doing just now, trying to refute me instead of pursuing the argument. And what if I am? How can you think that I have any other motive in refuting you but what I should have in examining into myself? Which motive would be just a fear of my unconsciously fancying that I knew something of which I was ignorant. And at this moment I pursue the argument chiefly for my own sake, and perhaps in some degree also for the sake of my other friends. For is not the discovery of things as they truly are a good common to all mankind? Yes, certainly, Socrates, he said. Then I said, be cheerful, sweet sir, and give your opinion in answer to the question which I asked, never minding whether Critias or Socrates is the person refuted. Attend only to the argument, and see what will come of the refutation. I think that you are right, he replied, and I will do as you say. Tell me then, I said, what you mean to affirm about wisdom. Again, this translation only has wisdom, the other one has temperance. I mean to say that wisdom is the only science which is the science of itself. As well as of other sciences. So the branch of knowledge, which is a study of itself as well as of the other branches of knowledge. But the science of science, I said, the knowledge of knowledge, will also be the science of the absence of science, the knowledge of the absence of knowledge. Very true, he said. Then the wise or temperate man, and he only, will know himself, and be able to examine what he knows or does not know, and to see what others know and think that they know and do really know, and what they do not know and fancy that they know when they do not. No other person will be able to do this. And this is wisdom and temperance and self-knowledge, for a man to know what he knows and what he does not know. That is your meaning? Yes, he said. Now then, I said, making an offering of the third or last argument to Zeus the Saviour, let us begin again and ask in the first place whether it is or is not possible for a person to know that he knows and does not know what he knows and does not know. And in the second place, whether, if perfectly possible, such knowledge is of any use. That is what we have to consider, he said. And here, Critias, I said, I hope that you will find a way out of a difficulty into which I have got myself. Shall I tell you the nature of the difficulty? By all means, he replied. Does not what you have been saying, if true, amount to this, that there must be a single science or branch of knowledge, which is wholly a science of itself and of other sciences, and that the same is also the science of the absence of science? Sounds a bit like epistemology to me. Yes. But consider how monstrous the proposition is, my friend. In any parallel case, the impossibility will be transparent to you. How is that? And in what cases do you mean? In such cases as this. Suppose that there is a kind of vision which is not like ordinary vision, but a vision of itself and of other sorts of vision, and of the defect of them, which in seeing sees no color, but only itself and other sorts of vision. Do you think that there is such a kind of vision? Certainly not. Or is there a kind of hearing which hears no sound at all, but only itself and other sorts of hearing, or the defects of them? There is not. Or take all the senses. Can you imagine that there is any sense of itself and other senses, but which is incapable of perceiving the objects of the senses? I think not. Could there be any desire which is not the desire of any pleasure, but of itself, and of all other desires? Certainly not. Or can you imagine a wish which wishes for no good, but only for itself and all other wishes? I should answer no. Or would you say that there is a love which is not the love of beauty, but of itself and of all other loves? I should not. Or did you ever know a fear which fears itself or other fears, but has no object of fear? I never did, he said. Or of an opinion which is an opinion of itself and of other opinions, and which has no opinion on the subjects of opinion in general? Certainly not. But surely we are assuming a science of this kind, which, having no subject matter, is a science of itself and of other sciences. Yes, that is what is affirmed. But how strange is this, if it be indeed true? We must not, however, as yet absolutely deny the possibility of such a science. Let us rather consider the matter. You are quite right. Well then, this science or branch of knowledge of which we are speaking is a science of something, and is of the nature to be a science of something. Yes. Just as that which is greater is of the nature to be greater than something else. Yes. Which is less, if the other is conceived to be greater. To be sure. And if we could find something which is at once greater than itself and greater than other great things, but not greater than those things in comparison of which the others are greater, then that thing would have a property of being greater and also less than itself. That, Socrates, he said, is the inevitable inference. Or if there be a double which is double of itself and of other doubles, these will be halves, for the double is relative to the half. That is true. And that which is greater than itself will also be less, and that which is heavier will also be lighter, and that which is older will also be younger, and the same of other things. That which has a nature relative to self will retain also the nature of its object. I mean to say, for example, that hearing is, as we say, a sound or voice. Is that true? Yes. Then if hearing hears itself, it must hear a voice, for there is no other way of hearing. Certainly. And sight also, my excellent friend, if it sees itself, must see a color, for sight cannot see that which has no color. No. Do you remark, Critias, that in several of the examples which have been recited, the notion of a relation to self is altogether inadmissible, and in other cases hardly credible? Inadmissible, for example, in the case of magnitudes, numbers, and the like. Very true. Thus for our scripture of the evening. Let's start with the cardinal virtues, since I have a tab open. So the 4 is prudence, phronesis, justice, dikaiosune, courage, Andrea, temperance, sophrosune. So you see why prudence, phronesis, temperance, sophrosune, also prudence. That's a very interesting, but valid, I think, translation choice. Especially the direction that the discussion is going now. Because how on earth could temperance be the study of itself? I did write here something. He was talking about numbers, the odds and even. But I thought, oh, that is maybe a good definition of sophrosune. Remember, as Socrates is, I'm simply inquiring with you. And I need some time to reflect. The quote is, in their relations to themselves and each other. So in there's something of sophrosune, about the relation you have to yourself and to others. And with the self and others, the both terms are very loaded. The self is the ego and all you associate with you. And the other is not only other human beings, but... See, for instance, my home, I wouldn't even know if that is self or other. But if other, if not self, then that would count as an other. Though I do think my home is more self than other, for me. Rebecca's first words when she came here was like, oh my God, it's like stepping inside your mind. Is Socrates trying to refute, or is he pursuing the argument? Both. He is refuting for the sake of the argument. I've seen that in good quality conversations online. Refutation for the sake of pursuing the argument. That is good. I approve. I wrote this down here, I've even seen it in what is considered monologues. One time someone wrote underneath one of Folly's posts, the guy never runs out of hands because he has a tendency to say, on the other hand, which is a type of refuting yourself. Wisdom. Let's first look at this. So what Socrates is saying here is that Critias' definition of wisdom or temperance, and you can see here why they switched from temperance to wisdom, is for a man to know what he does know and what he does not know, which is exactly Socrates' claim to wisdom in the Apology, that he knows maybe not what he does not know, but he knows that he does not know. So that's interesting. I wrote down metanoia because all these things that he said, like a sight that cannot see sight, a fear that fears fear, a love that loves love, I can very much imagine those things. And I think it's very common in the zeitgeist. Hence all the words of meta going around. For some reason, metanoia popped into my mind. Of all the metas, it was metanoia. Vision that sees itself. Wisdom, philosophy, studies itself and the other branches of knowledge. I think that is a very... Oh, did I not bring my Hegel? Oh, there it is. A very typical way to see philosophy, isn't it? I think Hegel said something to that account. What I have marked in Hegel today it is especially needful to make once again a serious business of philosophy. Then he comes basically to what Socrates is implying, Critias is saying. There is a general failure to perceive that in the case of any knowledge and any science, what is taken for truth, even as regard content, can only deserve the name truth when philosophy has had a hand in the production. He says other beautiful things. For instance, when taking philosophy serious, he makes a very good point of any other art we just take for granted, like playing piano needs practice, drawing needs practice, playing any sports needs practice. Everything we do in life needs practice. But it is taken for granted that people think that they can just philosophize. And I had to think... And I don't want to sound too... I don't know. Well, so be it. That is something that I've noticed, for instance. I was thinking that could be the reason why Alex is towering head and shoulders above his predecessors. Because he has training in philosophy. And he himself pointed out, for instance, what's his name? Sorry. Christopher Hitchens' flaws, which probably result from a lack of philosophical training. Richard Dawkins' lack of theological training, although he makes theological claims, statements. And people, that is what the whole know what you don't know boils down to. People with extensive and extraordinary knowledge in a field, we see this over and over again, often assume that because they know this field, they have the right to profess truths in other fields. Not take guesses, not suggest, but profess something as true. And that is what Socrates eventually will come to see as the absolute absence of wisdom. Letting your knowledge blind you to what you do not know. And I think some philosophical training, which then makes me so sad that I don't have philosophical training. Some philosophical training will do you very good in remembering this. Some training in epistemology, specifically. I suppose. I did read John of the Cross, and I had extensive thoughts about it, but I'm not sure if it's relevant to share. I actually think not. Except to say that the second night then would be a pursuit of knowledge instead of faith. Understanding. Both are ways of understanding, I suppose. And maybe I'll end with something else that I thought this morning. Frankish has done a really good job at persuading me that consciousness, with all the caveats that what it actually means, is an illusion. Easy to do so when you think the self is an illusion. Illusion is also a strange word maybe to use. A narrative is maybe the best word to use. The self is a narrative. Consciousness is a narrative. Consciousness, though, is a little bit more than that. But I'm still to investigate that. But I was thinking, I'm recording this earlier so that I can start the ritual. I was thinking that I mentioned that the sun might be a symbol of consciousness, as it is the light by which we see. But there's something deeper. And I think maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm completely mistaken, and maybe I'm very much speaking out of line. Is that I'm not in the right to say this. I don't know how to say that correctly. But I feel that how do I say this? It's not consciousness that is captivating. Something in me wants to say, let's just call a spade a spade. And maybe I'm seeing a spade where there is no spade. But I think what you're truly captivated by is the sacred. And I still need to do the investigation. And I do not think that in one night I will be able to find the answers. But I have a suspicion that consciousness is not that. There's something deeper. Because there is something strange. We are connected in weird ways. But I'm not sure that it's consciousness. I do think consciousness is what happens when matter / energy becomes complex, and sensual when the senses come into play. I don't know. May the spirit of Sophia be with you. And remember to take your picture of the sunrise tomorrow morning.